of our Fresh Squeeze Conversations with JD Daniel. Before we begin, I just wanted to highlight Fresh Squeeze Opera's commitment to diversity. Welcome, Victoria Benson.
Hey, Jillian, thank you so much. As Jillian mentioned, tonight we are joined by JD Daniel, who's coming to us from Kansas City. Hey, JD.
Hey.
How are you?
Doing all right. How are y'all doing?
Oh, good, thanks. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about your work. We're really excited to learn a little bit more about you and what you've been working on, especially lately during quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
We begin all of our Fresh Squeeze conversations by asking, how did you discover that you were a composer?
Yeah, so I started out as a pianist. My older sister was in piano lessons, and I, as a toddler, was looking up to her and wanting to be like her. And so my mom put me in piano lessons, and then I was doing that through elementary and middle school. And then in high school, I really wanted to be able to transcribe piano sheet music for some of my favorite songs and tracks from video games that I really liked playing, because that's one of the my favorite thing that I did as a kid was playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I got, like a really basic music notation software just to do that. And then I thought that that's all I would do was make arrangements for piano and then play them. And I did do that, but then I also decided to start writing a piece. I wrote a piano solo called Snowstorm, which I think is still on my YouTube channel for anyone who wants to check that out.
That's
you can
great.
See, like 14-year-old me, like almost 10 years ago.
You gotta start somewhere. We get to discover the journey.
So I did that, and I realized, that's a thing that people still do. It's not just like the old dead people that I'm playing on the piano for my lessons, and that I can keep doing that. And so I did some summer workshops, and then just went from there.
That's great. What's your favorite video game score?
Ooh, that's so hard to decide. I mean, I love the Sonic the Hedgehog series has a lot of good music. The original Star Fox for the Super Nintendo has a really, really nice, like, sci-fi orchestral type of score. I love space sci-fi, so that type of thing is stuff that I'm really into.
Every time I hear like Super Mario, it really takes me back to a
Yeah,
moment of my childhood for sure. And I think there was a friend of mine used to play Assassin's Creed,
That's
and
really
like I don't remember which one it was. I know there's many of them, but there was like one where they were pirates, and so there were all of these sea shanties and like little ditties that they would sing, and I always liked listening to those. Those were really fun. That, and also Zelda: The Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
That was a big one too, because you had to remember all of those little songs.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you mention it, I'm realizing like how much video game music played a part of my, early childhood. So who is writing music these days that gets you excited?
So somebody in the choral world who I'm still listening to this, it's Dale Trumbore's multi-movement piece, How to Go On. And I had the privilege to perform this piece with Cardinalis, which is a professional ensemble here in Kansas City. And we did it in March, right before the pandemic got really bad. So I'm really glad we got to do that concert.
Yeah,
it was an amazing concert. And this was kind of like the headliner piece.
She's great. She's we actually performed some of her work with Fresh Squeezed Opera in one of our showcases. So yeah, she's a wonderful composer.
Yeah. So basically, this piece is like a secular commentary on life and death, and I feel like we don't get a lot of that in choral music. It tends to be more sacred commentaries on life and death, and so I really like that, especially as a secular person or a largely secular person, to have really interesting poetry, often very minimalist poetry, and very, very rich intentional settings of the words. It was just a gorgeous challenge to sing, and I really, really enjoyed that. People outside of the classical or contemporary classical world, a couple artists that I'm really, really into right now are 65 Days of Static and Koan Sound. 65 Days of Static are like sort of like this alt rock or progressive rock group, but then they also do a lot of genre bending electronic stuff. And their most recent album, Replicar, Replicr, all lowercase, is just this very dark, minimalist electronic stuff. Like, it almost doesn't, you can barely connect it to rock in any way, but it's, it's kind of part of their genre bending. So I highly recommend that. And Koan Sound is this electronic music duo. I believe they're based in London. And they did a tour this summer, I think, like a socially distanced type thing. I can't remember for sure. Maybe it was last year. I can't remember now.
Who knows what time is? It's fine.
Yeah, a lot of time. But I highly recommend their album Polychrome and their EP Intervals Above. It's really cool stuff.
So do you get inspired by these artists when you're composing yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I sort of accept now, in a way maybe I didn't when I was a younger composer, that like whenever where I'm writing, I'm going to inevitably be influenced by what I'm hearing around me, and I'm not necessarily coming up with something brand new. You know, we have the
Mhm.
title, we have the phrase "new music," but I try to not put this pressure on myself that like I need to come up with something brand new. You know, and uh, from my younger years even up till now, I've often referenced and quoted other music in my work and been inspired by other things, um, whether it's classical or electronic or from video games.
Absolutely. I mean, all the greats do it. You know, you study in music school how Mozart and Beethoven and
They were all
Bach, they
quoting
all
each
learned
other.
from, yeah, they were all stealing little bits and borrowing from the ones that came before. So it seems like a solid a solid way to go.
Hmm.
So you were talking before about Dale Trumbore's choral piece that had text that you found really simplistic and moving. When you compose your own vocal music, what is it? What is your relationship to the text, and where do you find the text that you set?
Yeah, so I was able to. I do dabble in writing a little bit of poetry myself because I like it, even though I'm not that good of a poet, and also because I want to, understand things from that side when I am composing vocal music. And I was able to take a poetry class in undergrad with a really great professor, Dr. Ruth Williams at William Jewell. And something that I think I came away from that knowing and understanding is that the way I think of poetry is that it's a transformed way of understanding language, whereas prose might be a more straightforward way of communicating using a language. Poetry is taking that language, in our case English, and transforming it in some way. And you can use word choice and all these devices and line breaks and the way you arrange it on a page. And the words themselves might not be um, don't necessarily have to be incredibly flowery. I was saying like with Dale Trumbore's piece, the poetry is very simplistic, and some of my pieces use very simplistic texts. Um, but you can really have a huge impact in the transformative way that you're using those words. And then when you set it to music, then you're creating layers upon layers of transformation because then I can transform that text in another way by the way I set it to the music.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
So often the way I do that is deconstruction, and you might hear that in my piece Nightlight that I know we're going to hear an excerpt of here in a little bit.
Yes, yes, we have a treat for our listeners, which is your composition Nightlight. And what is it about the text in this piece that was really exciting for you that compelled you to set it?
Yeah, so this one, it's one of those texts it's very short and simple. I can even just say it right now. It's night in a railroad car window is a great dark soft thing broken across with slashes of light. It's just three very plain lines, but the way that was arranged and the word choices and just that simplicity of it, it felt like that was a gift to me. Like this poem was a gift to me to kind of just sink down into it and see, okay, what are these words revealing to me? What's in between the words that's being revealed to me?
That's
Um,
great. Let's take a listen
yeah.
to Nightlight. Thank you for sharing that with us, JD.
Yeah, and that
was
was a
beautiful.
Carl Sandburg poem, and the choir was the William Jewell College Concert Choir. Soloists were Kara Ellman and Spencer Rui, and the director is Anthony Maglione.
Oh, thank you. We'll put all of that information in the notes as well for the
Okay,
program. So yeah, we want to make sure everybody gets credit where credit is due for sure. It was a
of course.
beautiful performance. What about vocal music draws you in? And tell us about, all of your work for vocal music.
I think that there's just, I mean, also being a singer myself, that's my medium because, I mean, I started out as a pianist, but then I started singing in high school, and now my main medium is as a singer. And so just the communal experience of choral singing, especially, and just the feeling of raw expression in the way that I'm connecting to my body and I'm connecting to language and a story. Um, that's just really been impactful for me. I mean, I still have a soft spot for the piano. I always have a loving relationship with my piano. But
Can't get away from it.
yeah,
Not as a singer, that's for sure.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really enjoy, especially like I said, the communal experience of choir, but also the intimate form of art song. I like taking small forms and small ensembles and really, doing as much as with them as I can and creating expansive textures.
Okay.
And so I also enjoy with poetry, often working with living poets. I mean, of course, that previous poetry in that piece was a public domain poem, but as much as possible, I do also like collaborating with living poets. And so probably my favorite art song that I've ever been able to write, Universe is Trying to Tell Me Something, but it's mute, was done for a workshop called Art Song Lab in Vancouver, Canada.
Oh yeah, tell us about Art Song Lab. That seemed like
Yeah,
a really cool experience.
Yeah, so I made some friends up in Vancouver and I visited them and got to know the music scene and some really cool stuff that they're doing up there. And I met Michael Park, who's the director of Art Song Lab. And it's just a collaborative experience where you bring together composers and poets to create new vocal music. And then it's workshopped and performed at the end of the week. And so the first time that I did this workshop, I got to work with a poet named Irina Rahilkina, and she and I have like very similar philosophical proclivities. Like we write very, we have like our aesthetics are very like spacey and existential. And so this text is a little bit more complex and it's kind of, it's about existence. It's about blooming into existence. It's about being doomed to bloom into existence. Um,
Oh, that's really
and
resonating with me right now.
yeah, and kind of trying to find your place in space time, sort of.
Oh, very cool. Well, we have a clip of The Universe is Trying to Tell Me Something, but it's mute. So let's take a listen to JD's piece.
Have we heard of an airborne flower virus on the irony muse?
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I could see what you mean about the poetry being a little bit more complex. That was very evocative.
Yeah, it was really
What
fun.
what would you ever write an opera? I mean, we are Fresh Squeeze Opera, so we love to see composers try new things. Are you
I know,
interested?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth on it. I think I would want to, have kind of a relationship with an opera company already set up for it to be performed before I write something, or if maybe an opera company wants to commission me. But yeah, I haven't taken that dive yet, since I do tend to prefer more intimate forms. But I've thought about different ways I can kind of maybe bend the genre a little bit, like doing an opera that's a series of vignettes, which has been done before, or something that feels kind of like it's a series of art songs, but there's also a dramatic arc through them. I also had this joke with two of my friends in undergrad about there was my soprano friend and my mezzo friend about creating like a queer femme Appalachian romantic drama opera, like the femme version of Brokeback Mountain as an opera.
Oh my gosh, I think that's a great idea. You gotta start pitching that to some opera companies and get that commission for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in rural Missouri, so I have that kind of relationship to some of that music world of like mountain music and bluegrass and stuff like that. It's not my normal medium, but I feel it could be interesting to maybe collaborate with somebody who knows more about those genres and learn more about that, and maybe visit some places that are evocative of the scenery. Go through that whole method writing process, as it were.
I'm getting so many ideas already. This is very exciting. I love this idea.
So we'll see. I've been talking with my friends about that. I said, I'm gonna write it. I need to be able to write it for you guys. Like the thing.
That's great. Well, the opera genesis takes a long time, so it sounds like you're already well on your way. This is great. Do you ever work with electronic music?
Yes. And so
talk to us about that.
That's something I'm really wanting to get into more, and I'm actually applying for graduate programs in music technology to hopefully gain some more of that skill set, because like I said, I mean, I've been into video game music all my life, and along with that comes being into electronic music. In middle school, I was really into like retro club music from the 80s and 90s, and then in high school, I got into like more contemporary like dubstep and trance, and then in undergrad, I started getting into like ambient, minimalistic electroacoustic music. And that's kind of where I found my niche beginning, at least, with writing electronic music, is that, since I'm coming from an acoustic place, finding the middle place and doing electroacoustic music.
Is there something about your love of creating music for an intimate space and electronics that are kind of coinciding, or that ambient music that you like so much that they kind of meet somewhere?
Yeah, because often this music is, like I said, it's minimalistic, it's slower, it's very spacey, it's very immersive. I presented a paper in William Jewell, actually, where I went to undergrad, about a piece of ambient music. And in the presentation, I had everyone in the room close their eyes, and I played back the piece, and I asked them to just kind of let themselves be immersed in the piece. So that's kind of what I like to do with electroacoustic music. It's very immersive. Often it's also vocal in nature. I like combining it with vocal music, with choral music, with spoken word. I love doing spoken word. And that kind of leads me to the last piece that we're going to be listening to an excerpt of, which is Highway Contemplations. A lot of different stuff went into this piece. I have a lot of people to thank for it. Again, this was working with the William Jewell College Concert Choir, and a lot of volunteers singing and doing spoken word. And then I also brought my skills as a pianist and as a very mediocre cellist to the forefront. So this piece is very much, it's the base of it is recording me driving safely with a microphone next to me, driving back to campus from an errand, and just kind of talking stream of consciousness, whatever comes to mind. And I ended up talking about outer space, and I talked about mindfulness and existence again. A lot of my philosophical proclivities came to the fore again. So it was a really interesting project.
All right, that's great. Let's listen to Highway Contemplations.
For someone who acts like they really love the stars, I don't actually stop and physically, literally appreciate the stars enough. And now, I can't see any of them. This red light's taking forever. There we go.
4 and 80 zeros of cubic miles. 46 billion light years. Only 4%. The battery is low and it's getting dark. Can we
Today I
try
learned
again?
that astrophysicists
We need to be heard.
currently estimate
Wonder
that
what
we
else is out
only have observed about
4 and
4%
80 zeros of
of the
cubic
entire
miles.
physical universe.
46 billion light years. Only 4%.
Yeah, that 4% we know very, very little about, of course.
The battery is low, and it's getting
If
dark.
you measure it in cubic miles, it's something like 4 followed by a ton of zeros.
Can we try
80
again?
zeros or something like that.
4 and 80 zeros.
We
cubic
need
miles.
to be heard.
46 billion light years.
Wonder what else is out there?
4 and 80 zeros
Battery
of
is
cubic
low,
miles.
and it's getting dark.
46
96.
billion light years.
Can we
96%.
try again?
4%.
We haven't
need
even
The battery
observed.
is low and it's getting dark.
4 and 80.
That was great. I love that you shared with us that you were doing this as like a stream of consciousness, and then it made it into your piece. It has like this element of improvisation to it, which is super cool. And
Yeah,
I can
really
totally, yeah, I can totally hear how you were going for like that ambient tone as well. It was really kind of put the listener in like in a moment, in a space.
Yeah.
It was like soothing, and then the different voices kind of were coming in there. What was the inspiration for this?
I just already had this idea that like the first time, this is the first electroacoustic piece I did, I just wanted to record myself speaking kind of improvisationally, and then I had the idea of speaking while driving, just because that also creates a lot of ambient noise, and so that just becomes part of the soundscape. And then I just was like, you know what? I would drive a Prius, and a lot of my friends, when they get in my car, with the way the dash looks, they say that it looks like a spaceship. So then I ended up just like talking about outer space, and then I wrote like a short text for these spoken word artists who are amazing volunteers to speak about like facts about space and kind of give these suggestions about what is this thing that's bigger around us. We are wanting to explore more. We're wanting to find meaning. We're wanting to find purpose. So yeah, it was really fun, and really, I always get emotional listening to that because it was like the last piece that I did in my undergrad, and it featured on my senior recital, and it was just all of my friends helping me. So it was just.
Oh, it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
It's very meaningful. Is it? You said it was in your recital. How was it performed? Was it performed via recording, or was there any sort of live component to it?
I decided to just have it be a fixed recording, so that then the audience was just sitting there listening and not kind of focusing on a performer delivering it to them. It was just a speaker playback, and we dimmed the lights, so you can kind of feel like you're just in that immersive space and not really focusing on anything in particular.
See, JD, I think you are ready to write that opera. You're creating this entire theatrical experience already for your audience.
We'll see then.
As somebody who, you mentioned that you're looking to get some more formal training about with electronic music. What tools and resources have you found so far that have helped you along the way?
Oh, I always have my music notation software to use if I want to actually notate anything. So I use Finale software. Oftentimes I'm just improving at my piano. And then I just use really basic editing software. I use Audacity, which is like a free program that a lot of people probably know of.
Yeah.
It's just free audio editing. It's not a lot that I can do with it, but it allows me to kind of create some interesting effects. Often I'm taking stuff that's acoustic and then kind of messing with it and, echoing and stretching things out and making a different sound or a different texture, transforming it from the original acoustic sound. But yeah, I'm hoping to get more sophisticated software and learn how to use it.
Very cool. So you completed some works for your recital. What is your relationship to your work once it's finished? Do you ever consider a piece that you work on completely done?
No, I don't think I'd like to consider it that way, because I think music compositions are living works, because it's not music until it's actually performed. It's a concept, or it's an idea, or it's a structure, or it's writing on a page if it's notated. But that's not truly music until it's actually experienced. It's an experiential art form. It's experienced over a course of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to, and this is something that I wasn't good at when I was younger, I tried to think about my relationship with performers horizontally. Like, I'm not like this Enlightenment era guru coming down from the mountain to bestow my genius upon the people, and then everybody needs to kowtow to my vision. Of course, my vision
What?
matters, and I want, yeah, of course, my vision matters, and I want my vision to be honored. But then I also want my performer's vision to be honored. So one of my friends, poets, whom I collaborated with on another piece for Art Song Lab, Tom Wimbiga, he described it as reverence, like having reverent relations with the people whom you're working with and whom you're creating with. So getting to do that with poets and take their vision seriously, including how they might like their words to be sung, and then taking my performers seriously and being like, okay, what's comfortable for you? What stretches you and challenges you? What may be too much of a challenge? What's too much of a stretch? Do you have a suggestion for what works well here? Do you have a technique that you can pull out that I didn't know you could pull out that you can add here? And it's going to be different every time when it's something that's not fixed electronics like Highway Contemplations. If it's something that is written and performed, it's going to be different every time. It's a living work. So I've just been continuing to wrestle with the tension of needing professional respect and needing my work to be honored, especially as a marginalized person, but also wanting to make sure that I'm honoring everyone else in the situation.
How do you feel like your work as, somebody who identifies as non-binary, how do you feel like that affects your work, and how does that manifest in your compositions?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I've thought about how my gender necessarily relates to what I do.
Listen, it may not. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, definitely when it comes to vocal works, I don't like to think of like when I write for bass baritone, I'm not writing a man's song necessarily, right? And when often a lot of these works, tend to be very gendered and very heteronormative, and like, stuff that I sing in undergrad as a bass baritone, I'm like singing about a woman I love and things like that. And it's like, okay, that's not wrong. But like that's not the only way for a bass baritone to be. It's not the only thing for a bass baritone to sing about. Like a bass baritone can be singing about a man. A bass baritone could be singing about being a woman or about being non-binary or about whatever it may be. So definitely when it comes to, I think about it more as a performer, especially in choral settings. Kind of seeing which choral directors are saying soprano and alto tenor bass instead of saying women's voices and men's voices. So yeah, that does come into play. Maybe not as much as in my composing, but definitely in my life as a performer, it does.
Okay. And how does composing fit into your everyday life? I mean, if we flip the question a little bit, what is your everyday experience as a composer?
So I've wrestled with this so much over the years, and right now I feel like where I'm at in life is that I've decided I don't necessarily want composing to be the main thing that I try to use to make a living. It works for some people. I know I have some colleagues who are hustling as freelance composers and making it happen, and it's amazing. And they churn out a lot of work. And personally, for me, I find that expectation and pressure of needing to make money off of it and needing to find external success really puts a damper on my motivation and the joy that I get out of what I do. So I prefer to have something else that I do by day. Right now, I just am building a sales career. I just work a sales job by day, and then I make time for it out of intrinsic motivation for myself by night. And if it makes me some money, cool. If things get performed, if things get around, if I get to do cool interviews like this is fun. But I mostly just try to keep that as a part of my life that is for me. It's for my joy. And if I can share that joy with other people in any way, cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists right now are kind of butting up against the fact that they might not be able to perform, or they might have had their gigs canceled. So even the ones that were making steady work, as artists, they're now trying to find a new balance. So it's certainly been a struggle in trying to sort of rejigger how that's working. So what do you see for the future of opera?
I won't make comment necessarily on musical trends, but I think the culture is changing, and I think the way Gen Z is going to do opera is going to be very different. I think bigger companies and powerful institutions are coming under rightful criticism about diversity and inclusion. I know the Met has come under a lot of criticism. I recommend anybody who's on Instagram to follow the accounts at Opera is Racist and at Choir is Racist to learn kind of about what Black, Indigenous, Brown, and other people of color have been experiencing in the opera world, and ways we're trying to change it, and the ways that BIPOC professionals are working in the opera world as administrators, as directors, as casters. So I think we're going to see a lot of those types of changes happening in the opera world, and should hopefully be for the better.
Yep, I agree. I'm very much looking forward to seeing some things change and seeing what comes out of it. Hopefully, some really excellent opera theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're coming to the end of our time now, and I would like to end by asking, what are you working on right now, and where can our listeners find more?
So right now I'm finishing up a piece called Dream Planes, which is very personal work for me, and it's another electroacoustic piece. This one can be either a fixed recording or it can involve live performance with a flute and a clarinet. And it includes me playing the piano as well in the recording. And it's quasi autobiographical, and it kind of involves me embracing my Indian heritage. You'll hear a soundtrack of my mom cooking Indian food, and also some rhythms taken from Carnatic music, which is classical South Indian music, and that's where my family's from, is from South India. So it was a really interesting project, and that'll be coming out in the near future.
That's great. And where can our audience find you, more of your work? Where are you online?
Yeah, so I'm just JD Daniel on YouTube, and you can find me on Instagram at Composing Humanism or on Facebook at JD Daniel Composing Humanism.
Great. Well, JD, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and to learn more about your music.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody else who joined us to listen. And hopefully we'll see most of you tomorrow as we speak to Molly Joyce. Thanks again, JD. It's been a great treat.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.